Most people perceive manifestation as a distant goal to be reached. It's as if life is a mountain. You're at the bottom, and what you want is at the summit. You've been taught to work harder, want more, visualize more clearly, feel more strongly. So people mentally push themselves forward, striving towards a reality they don't yet possess. But at the quantum level, reality doesn't work that way. Quantum manifestation works backward, not forward. And when you truly understand this, almost every manifestation technique you've learned loses its meaning. Because the problem isn't wanting enough. The problem is looking at it from a place where you have to want it. You were taught, want more, visualize more clearly, feel more intensely, repeat affirmations. Many people have repeatedly visualized their ideal lives in their minds, repeated the same sentences over and over, and sometimes even tried to convince others of it. And yes, sometimes they achieved small results. But most of the time, it was like a life standing behind glass, very close but untouchable. The reason is simple, yet unsettling. Every time you focus on what you want as something you don't yet have, you send a signal of lack to the quantum field. The quantum field reads your state of being, not your feelings or words. When you say, "I want abundance," the field perceives, "This person is not currently in abundance." When you say, "I want to attain infinite love," the field hears, "Love is lacking." The act of wanting itself carries the energetic signature of not having. And because the quantum field works like a perfect mirror, it reflects this back to you. Distance, delay, the feeling of not yet being. This is where the breaking point of quantum manifestation theory begins, because true transformation doesn't happen by moving from lack to satisfaction. It happens by beginning to live from within satisfaction. From a quantum perspective, everything you desire already exists. This is not a metaphorical expression. In physics, this is called a probability field. At the quantum level, all possible realities exist simultaneously. The most ordinary and the most extraordinary versions of your life already exist. You're not creating something new. You're choosing one from among the frequencies that already exist. And here, the understanding of time changes completely. Because in quantum physics, time is not linear. The future is not a point after today. In some experiments, it has been observed that future measurements can influence today's results. In science, this is called retro-intentionality. That is, a future state can align itself with the present moment. Manifestation happens precisely here. You're not moving towards the person you want to be in the future. You're stepping back into that person's consciousness. But most people make a mistake here. They say, "I'll act as if I already have it." But action is not manifestation. Hoping is not knowing. And wanting, regardless of the tense used, is still wanting. True retrospective intention requires something far more radical: the complete elimination of the gap between you and your desire. If there is no gap, there is no journey. If there is no journey, there is no effort. If there is no effort, there is only the state of arrival. And at that point, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing. Consciousness is not limited by the classical rules governing physical matter. Your awareness can exist at any point in what we call time. The moment you choose a consciousness that is already living the reality you desire, you begin to broadcast at that frequency. The quantum field does not decide whether it is a dream or reality. It only perceives harmony. This is not a method of positive thinking. This is not a visualization technique. This is the application of quantum mechanics to consciousness itself. When you look from the endpoint, that is, from what has already been achieved, your current reality begins to rearrange itself accordingly. The future stretches backward and makes the present consistent with itself. The clearest way to understand this is through an analogy. Imagine you are reading a novel. But you don't start from the beginning. You start from the last page. You know how the story ends. Now, when you go back and start reading from the beginning, every event looks different. Coincidences gain meaning. The character's words acquire a different depth because you know the outcome. Quantum manifestation is exactly this. When you know how the story will end, life naturally aligns with that outcome. Opportunities arise. People arrive at the right time. Resources flow effortlessly because you don't need to strive for them. You are already in alignment with a predetermined timeline. And perhaps the greatest transformation happens here. Anxiety disappears. Haste vanishes. Someone who knows the ending of the story doesn't force the plot. They don't manipulate the characters. They don't try to rush the timing. Because they know everything will unfold as it should. That's why people who truly understand the manifestation appear calm. They are self-confident. They don't cling to results. They don't seek validation because they don't wait for the outcome. They live the outcome. And the quantum field, as always, responds only to this. Validation is no longer something received from the outside, because at this stage, validation has become a natural part of one's state of being. What is felt in the inner world is not longing, because longing implies lack. It is not desire, because desire points to a state not yet possessed. It is by no means a need, because need operates at the frequency of dependence. Instead, consciousness is fixed in a state of wholeness, satisfaction, and gratitude. And it is precisely at this point that something very critical happens. When your frequency begins to radiate absolute certainty, the universe stops testing you. Your energy signature is no longer, will it happen? When you begin to carry the knowledge of it already happened, rather than the question, the quantum field stops offering experiences that test your belief. Because testing is for uncertainty. If there is doubt, there is testing. But when consciousness moves to a state of certainty, the only thing the field can do is produce evidence that confirms the state. At this point, reality no longer tries to convince you. It simply makes visible what you already know. Most people experience manifestation as a bargain with reality, as if the universe were an authority standing before them and would only reward them if they desired it enough, believed it enough, or suffered it enough. Therefore, people try to prove their worth, show their commitment, and sometimes even convince the universe of their sincerity. But the quantum field doesn't work that way. The field doesn't judge worth. The field doesn't weigh intention. The field doesn't score effort. This field responds to only one thing: frequency alignment. This is not a spiritual metaphor. It is an observation made at the intersection of modern physics and neuroscience. The quantum field perceives which state of being you embody and reflects it back to you. Because, at the most fundamental level, reality consists of probabilities interacting with consciousness. Consciousness is the filter that determines which probability will be transformed into experience. In physics, this principle is clearly defined. Observation transforms the probability wave into experience. And observation is not just looking, it is a conscious state of being. Scientists, especially when studying the quantum measurement problem, have realized that how a system is observed determines what will emerge. Similarly, human consciousness determines which experiences will arise depending on how it lives life. Therefore, the state of being is the fundamental determinant of the experience of reality. If what has been described so far resonates with you, it is not because of information, but because of the frequency that touches you. But we cannot stop here, because understanding the theory only opens the door. The real transformation begins when you make this understanding a way of life. You need to make this state the default mode of your existence. The first step in retrospective manifestation is reality choice. This isn't about trying to create the outcome you want. It's about consciously choosing one of the infinite possibilities that already exist. In quantum physics, this space is defined as the potential space where all possible states exist simultaneously. Now visualize this. Imagine you are standing in front of a vast cosmic archive. In this archive, every possible version of your life is fully present. The version where you are materially abundant. The version where you are physically healthy. The version where you are innerly at peace, content with your relationships. The version where you are living in accordance with your soul's deepest purpose. None is less real. None is unattainable. They all exist simultaneously. Your task isn't to build one of these realities from scratch. Your task is to choose one and completely immerse yourself in it. The moment you choose, you become the person already living that reality. You become aware of how that state feels. You feel its breathing, how it moves in the world, how it interacts with uncertainty. So how does certainty feel in your body? How does your nervous system function in this state? How does gratitude change your posture, your gaze, your breathing rhythm? These are not illusions. These are not roles. Neuroscientifically, your body begins to produce signals corresponding to the identity you choose. The nervous system shifts from danger and seeking mode to trust and possession mode. And as the body aligns with consciousness, the broadcast changes. The moment you make this choice, you begin broadcasting from that timeline. Your thoughts are shaped according to that identity. Your emotions stabilize at that frequency. Your actions no longer occur through coercion, but through a natural flow. But there's a crucial point here. You cannot do this from a state of lack. You cannot generate the frequency of satisfaction starting from something you don't possess. The choice must be complete, total, and unconditional. When you truly choose a reality, the old reality doesn't disappear through struggle. It simply dissolves. In physics, this is similar to a phase transition. There is a sudden, non-gradual jump from one state to another. We call this a quantum leap. One moment you are the seeker, the next you are the emitter. This shift first occurs in consciousness. Reality always follows. The second fundamental element of retrospective manifestation is embodied certainty. This is deeper than belief. It is quieter than hope. Certainty is knowing. It is not thinking. It is the knowledge that exists in your cells, in your breath, in your gait. When you reach this point, you stop checking whether your manifestation is working. You don't constantly check your bank account You don't analyze people's behavior for signs. You don't put every change in your body under a magnifying glass. Because when you know something already exists, you don't need confirmation. Confirmation is already within your state of being. And here is the most paradoxical but most powerful truth. The moment you stop needing proof, proof begins to appear everywhere. You no longer need to search for proof. Proof finds you. Embodied certainty creates what is called coherence in physics. Thoughts, feelings, and actions align around a single frequency. Inner conflict disappears. Energetic noise ceases. The mixed signals are cut off. You become a clear broadcaster of a single reality. And the quantum field, as it always does, responds to this clarity. It reorganizes itself around a coherent consciousness. What we have described so far is only the visible surface of this mechanism. The real depth begins when you learn to remain in this state. At this point, we are no longer dealing with a single technique, but with a holistic quantum consciousness system. While retrospective manifestation may seem revolutionary to most people, it is actually only one of the visible layers of a much broader architecture of consciousness mastery. If the concepts of reality choice, timeline consistency, and embodied certainty resonate with you, it is because information is beginning to be processed perceptually, not mentally. Because consciousness recognizes information for which it is ready. Naturally, the question arises, this theory seems powerful, but how can I internalize certainty if the reality I am currently experiencing is far from what I desire? The answer lies in the third, and often most misunderstood, element, the practice of accepting reality. Accepting reality is not, as most people think, submitting to current conditions, nor is it about denying what you see. Accepting reality is consciously deciding which timeline you will live from, regardless of what external conditions show. The conditions you are currently experiencing are a natural consequence of your past states of existence. However, these are not the limits of what is possible in the present. These are simply delays between the old identity and the new embodiment. Neuroscience clearly defines this. When the nervous system transitions to a new identity or state of being, the updating of external conditions occurs with a temporal delay. The brain and body recognize the new order, but environmental feedback is not yet fully synchronized. Most people give up at this stage because they evaluate the new choice based on old data. But the skill lies in maintaining resolve during this moment of delay. When you truly accept the reality you have chosen, you no longer make choices based on old patterns. If you have chosen a timeline where you live in abundance, you make decisions based on a sense of sufficiency, not a fear of scarcity. If you have chosen a healthy bodily reality, you treat your body not as a set of problems, but as a system with its own intelligence. If you have developed a self-aligned with your life purpose, you carry that purpose as your guide as you move through the world, not as a goal to be pursued. This is not about taking radical steps. It is certainly not about forcibly transforming life. It is about small but consistent adjustments. Because the way of thinking of someone living with abundance consciousness is different from the way of thinking of someone struggling with money. The habits of someone with a well-established health consciousness differ from those of someone fighting illness. A person aligned with their purpose acts with a completely different energy than someone constantly searching for meaning. And at this point, something very interesting happens. When you begin to live from the reality you have chosen, the distance between your inner state and external conditions gradually closes. This closing doesn't happen through your effort. It's the effect of inevitability, because you are now aligned with a timeline whose outcome has already occurred. In physics, this is called backward causality. That is, a future order begins to organize the present moment in a way that is consistent with itself. Therefore, your future self reaches into the past and rearranges your current decisions, encounters, and seemingly coincidental events. This is not a metaphor. It is a behavioral pattern observed in complex systems. I want you to pause for a moment and feel this in your body. Imagine yourself living in your current state, your ideal reality. How is your breathing in that state? How are your shoulders positioned? How much weight does the feeling of self-confidence carry in your chest? How much warmth does the feeling of gratitude radiate in your heart? Allow your body to recognize this state, because the body remembers the chosen frequency much faster than the mind. This is where quantum manifestation completely diverges from classical approaches. Most methods focus on altering external reality. They try to correct conditions. They try to manipulate people, events, timing. But retrospective manifestation acknowledges a much more fundamental truth. External reality is always a delayed reflection of the internal state. Once the internal reality is fully established, the external world has no other option. That's why people who skillfully use this system appear effortless, because they are not working against reality. They understand how reality works. They know that consciousness is primary, matter is secondary. They have learned through experience that observation shapes experience. They use their awareness not only to observe, but also to choose the truth. And perhaps the most striking realization is this: you do this your entire life. Every belief you hold, every identity you embrace, every story you tell yourself, "This is who I am," was actually an unconscious choice of reality. The only difference is that most of these choices were made through past conditioning, environmental influences, and automatic responses. Reverse manifestation is about becoming consciously aware of this process you've already been doing unconsciously. It's about allowing the future you desire to shape your present moment, instead of letting your past define your future. It's about allowing circumstances to define your state of being and creating space for your state of being to make way for new circumstances. The difference begins here. The difference between hoping for change and being change itself. The difference between wanting a different life and living a different life. Now pause for a moment and write this sentence: I am ready to manifest in the reverse direction. Do this not as a ritual, but as a declaration, because this tells the quantum realm, I am now freeing myself from the cycle of lack and desire. I'm moving towards a paradigm of choice and concretization. And when this announcement is made, the system begins to respond. When you are truly ready for a different reality, it ceases to be merely an intention and transforms into a measurable signal. Your nervous system, perceptions, and decision-making mechanisms begin to adapt to the new choice. One of the first things noticed during this transition is the disappearance of the sense of urgency, because consciousness knows that nothing that belongs to you can escape. Time pressure is actually a product of insecurity. When confidence is established, the need for speed disappears. Anxiety is replaced by a strange but familiar feeling, a quiet certainty. The question, will it happen, loses its importance, because there is the knowledge that it has already taken root within you. Therefore, worry gives way to excitement. Disappointment turns into curiosity. Unexpected developments don't shock you. Rather, they are perceived as the universe's way of creating alternative paths for you. At some point, you need to translate this internal change into action. You begin to validate what you previously claimed for your life. This may not seem dramatic from the outside, but the people around you sense a difference. They can't define exactly what's happening, but they feel a new weight, a consistency in your being. A sense of stability that wasn't there before emerges. This effect is known in consciousness as harmony magnetism. People are drawn to you because when a person becomes consistent with their inner reality, the systems around them perceive this. Brains and bodies naturally orient themselves toward consistent frequencies. This is a phenomenon observed in social psychology. Individuals with high inner harmony create a sense of trust and openness in their environment. This magnetic quality is not a skill to be developed. It arises spontaneously when inner conflicts diminish. If your mind desires one thing while your body prepares for another, you only begin to broadcast in one direction. When you don't send mixed signals into the quantum field, the field doesn't produce mixed results for you. However, this transformation doesn't remain solely at the level of thought. Your relationship with life is completely restructured. When you begin to live from the reality you choose, you make choices your old self would never have made. You're not forcing yourself to be different. Your inner compass has shifted. Therefore, things that once excited you may lose their impact. Pursuits that once seemed indispensable may become meaningless. Problems that drained your energy begin to lose their place in your mental space. Some people may even feel they are no longer in tune with you. This can feel unsettling at first, as if you're leaving behind a familiar identity. But this isn't a loss. This is a journey toward your true self. Your ideal reality has always been potentially present. You're not becoming someone new. You're simply shedding layers of conformity, defense, and compromise that have accumulated over the years. You're returning to the person who was always there. As this process deepens, certain signs begin to emerge in the outside world. I call them reality confirmation signals. These are the moments when interchange begins to manifest outwardly. Unexpected, but perfectly timed opportunities arise. A conversation occurs where you hear the right words at exactly the right moment. Resources you hadn't noticed before become visible. These aren't coincidences. These are feedbacks from a system that responds to your frequency. When you change the broadcast, the receivers change as well. But there's a critical point. These signals come after the inner transformation is complete, not before. The field responds to what you are, not what you want to be. That's why belief is vital. But we're not talking about blind belief here. We're talking about trust in the fundamental principles of how consciousness structures reality. We're talking about knowledge, reinforced by experience, that the inner state is more decisive than external conditions. We're talking about trust that the quantum field consistently responds to your dominant frequency. And once this trust is established, the process accelerates. Retrospective manifestation is quite generous in proving itself. Changes that used to take years begin to appear within weeks or months. A sense of flow emerges in areas that required struggle. Because you're no longer swimming against your desired timeline, you're moving in harmony with its natural flow. At this point, you stop fighting reality. You don't force outcomes. You allow them to arise from your harmonious state of being. And if this narrative touches you deeply, if you feel it not just in your mind, but also in your body, it's because these principles are remembered knowledge. I've noticed this. Transformation is contagious. When you embrace a new reality, you remind those around you that they can do the same. Alignment becomes a silent invitation for others. Your consistency becomes a beacon for those ready to break free from old patterns. And the process doesn't end there. As you practice, more subtle layers of retrospective manifestation begin to emerge. The most important of these is timeline consistency. The ability to maintain alignment with your chosen reality, even when circumstances seem contradictory. Timeline consistency means that every thought, every feeling, and every action originates from the identity of someone already living the reality you desire. It's not about being perfect. It's about being dominant. When a large portion of your emotional energy is aligned with your chosen reality, the quantum field recognizes this as the dominant signal. Many people get stuck here. They experience the new reality for a short time. Then an old trigger emerges. A bill, a message, a delay, and consciousness reverts back to the old timeline. Mastery begins right here. Relationship problems arise. An unexpected health signal appears in the body. Or, while life seems to be going well, a small but disturbing obstacle turns everything upside down. At this point, most people unconsciously revert to old thought and feeling patterns. They abandon their chosen timeline and return to the frequency of deficiency, struggle, or defense. However, these moments are not indicative of the process's failure. Rather, they are signs that the process is working. From a neuroscientific perspective, the brain activates old neural networks one last time before releasing them. In psychology, this is called an extinction burst. Just before a pattern is resolved, it can be felt more strongly. A similar situation is observed at the quantum level. As the field reorganizes around the new frequency, remnants of old timelines that no longer serve the new reality surface. Therefore, the challenges that arise are part of the process of releasing patterns that no longer serve the new reality. And your reaction at these moments determines everything. Will you allow external circumstances to lead you to the thought, "I must have been wrong"? Or will you use this moment as an opportunity to experience your chosen reality more deeply? It's crucial to ask yourself these questions. How would the person living in my ideal reality approach this situation? How would they think? How would they feel? How would they react? This is the practice of reality invalidation. It's not about denying what happened. It's about consciously choosing which self you relate to when the event occurs. The same event, viewed from your old identity, reinforces the old reality. But viewed from your chosen identity, it validates the new reality. As this skill develops, you realize your influence over your experience is far greater than you thought. This isn't power in the sense of controlling external circumstances. This is the power to choose which timeline you align with at any given moment. And that choice is always yours, regardless of what's happening around you. The more consistent you remain with your chosen reality, the more that reality becomes your new norm. Behaviors that initially required conscious effort become automatic. Attitudes that once felt like acting become your natural state. Things that once seemed impossible become inevitable. And at this point, we come to the most misunderstood, yet most critical part of the process: quantum surrender. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is letting go of control. It is knowing that after choosing your reality and aligning with its frequency, the questions of how, when, and which way are no longer your responsibility. Your task is to maintain your state of being. The intelligence of the quantum field will arrange the details. This surrender is only possible when you truly internalize the reality you have chosen. You cannot surrender from doubt. You cannot surrender from uncertainty. Surrender arises from knowing. When you know that your reality is already established at the quantum level, relaxation begins in your body. The nervous system shifts out of threat mode. The pressure disappears. This is the difference between trying to make something happen and letting something happen. When you surrender, you stop watching the process. You stop controlling the outcomes. And as a result, you begin to live as if you were already there. Manifestation occurs precisely at this point, effortlessly. You no longer push. You no longer pull. You no longer manipulate. You no longer strive. You simply exist. And in this state of pure existence, in harmony with your reality, the quantum field establishes its own order without any interference. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this process is this: not only do the things you experience change, but who you are also changes. Retrospective manifestation is more than just getting what you want. It's a way of remembering who you truly are. You, living your ideal reality, are not just someone with better circumstances. You carry a deeper wisdom, a broader perspective, and a more coherent inner world. As this harmony deepens, your inner qualities transform. You become more patient. You become more reliable. Living in the moment doesn't become difficult. It becomes natural. Gratitude becomes a reflex, not a technique. Generosity and authenticity emerge spontaneously. Perhaps for the first time, you truly feel like yourself. And this transformation isn't limited to you alone. Your family will feel it. Your friends will notice. It will be felt in your work environment. Even strangers will be drawn to it. You will be a living example. Here, a deeper impact begins: the quantum ripple effect. In this phenomenon, which scientists are trying to call morphic resonance, when a sufficient number of individuals adopt a new model of consciousness, that model becomes accessible in the collective realm. Human history is full of examples of individuals who have never had contact with each other, making the same breakthroughs simultaneously. This phenomenon, known as the 100th monkey effect, shows that when consciousness crosses a critical threshold, a new understanding spreads to the collective. Today, this is happening in the realm of quantum manifestation. As more people learn to live by starting from results rather than chasing them, a new model is forming in the collective consciousness. Therefore, this mastery is not just personal, it is evolutionary. When you choose embodiment instead of effort, certainty instead of struggle, you choose a new way of being human. You show that consciousness truly shapes reality, that we are not passive victims. And this awareness brings not a heavy burden, but a graceful responsibility. You don't have to save the world. You are only responsible for being authentic. Because sometimes the greatest change begins when a person aligns with their own truth. When you align with your highest truth, that is, when you live your chosen reality, not just mentally, but with your whole being, it ceases to be merely a personal transformation. Naturally, you begin to affect the entire space you inhabit. I call this the cascade of consciousness. As you stabilize in your new reality, as your frequency becomes consistent and free from contradictions, long dormant potentials begin to awaken in the people around you. This doesn't happen through effort. You don't need to teach anything. You don't need to try to convince anyone. Just being there is enough. A similar effect is observed in neuroscience. A regular, calm, and consistent nervous system begins to regulate the disordered systems around it. Studies of heart rhythm show that a person's consistent heartbeat pattern can even affect the physiology of other individuals nearby. A similar resonance occurs at the level of consciousness. Your presence acts like a tuning fork, adjusting the inner harmony of others. People come to you and ask what's different. People wonder how you remain so calm in situations that used to challenge you. They are trying to understand why opportunities come to you so effortlessly. And sometimes, without saying a single word, they begin to remember possibilities they had forgotten were possible in their own lives. That's how transformation spreads. Not through preaching, not through coercion, only through existence. When a person aligns with their own reality and refuses to sacrifice that alignment to external circumstances, life becomes a silent but powerful example. It becomes proof that says, look, this is possible. But here, a deeper layer opens up. What if every reality is already possible? The quantum field is not just a waiting room for potentials. Increasing scientific interpretations are beginning to treat it as a network of parallel, simultaneously existing real-life timelines. So your experiences are not just possible, they are already happening somewhere. When you truly grasp this understanding, manifestation ceases to be a process of creating something. It becomes a conscious navigation among existing realities. You begin to perceive yourself not as someone trying to change circumstances, but as a consciousness choosing which stream of experience to live in. This perspective also eliminates the last vestiges of powerlessness in the manifestation process. You no longer expect anything from the universe. You don't ask for permission. You don't question whether you deserve it. You choose which of the infinite realities you want to experience and align your consciousness with that choice. Imagine for a moment, all possible versions of your life are like an endless film strip stretching out before you. You have a version struggling with material hardship. You have a version living in abundance. You have a timeline that is lonely and searching. You have another timeline experiencing deep contentment and peace. You have a version struggling with illness. You have another version that is vibrant, healthy, and strong. They all exist simultaneously. None is less real than the other. Which one you experience depends on which one your consciousness aligns with. Once you understand this, manifestation ceases to be a construction process. It becomes a matter of taking a step. You don't build. You find a step and take it. Those who practice advanced backward manifestation learn to do this consciously. I call this quantum mobility. the capacity of consciousness to flexibly shift between different timelines. This ability requires dissolving the dependence on a fixed identity, softening the "this is who I am" narrative, letting go of the need to control how change happens, strengthening intuitive guidance. As quantum mobility develops, reality becomes more fluid and responsive. Instead of waiting months or years, you begin to experience changes, sometimes even within hours, because you are no longer trying to force conditions to exist. You are aligning with the timeline where these conditions already exist. However, this level of mastery requires something that most people resist: the complete dissolution of victim consciousness. As long as you believe that external conditions determine your internal state, you remain trapped in reactive timelines. Quantum mobility is possible when you know, not just mentally, but also at the cellular level, that consciousness is primary and conditions are secondary. This knowledge doesn't come from books. It doesn't come from reading. It comes from making choices again and again. It comes from choosing peace amidst chaos each time. It's about choosing abundance over apparent scarcity each time. It's about choosing love over fear each moment. With each choice, you train your consciousness to move along timelines based on choices, not circumstances. As this capacity develops, you realize that reality responds to you differently. Things that were once difficult become easy. Doors open where walls were. Effort decreases, flow increases, because you are now aligned with the timelines where these experiences are natural. This is ultimate freedom. The freedom to choose your own reality, independent of your past, your starting point, and what others deem possible for you. And here, a crucial realization emerges. Personal freedom and collective evolution are not separate things. They are two sides of the same process. As your capacity to choose your reality increases, you become more aware of how these choices affect the collective space. Your harmonious existence allows others to consider possibilities they never imagined for themselves. This is perhaps the deepest gift you can offer the world. Not your advice, not your opinions, not your attempts at correction, just who you are.